Good morning and welcome to Recipe for Success. My name is Nancy Giacalone, and you can tell it's been a minute since I have done one of these because I couldn't even spit out the name of my own podcast. Next week kicks off season 3, 3 years of doing this, which is kind of crazy. So the intro video I used was actually the recap of season 2, but I didn't want to bust out the new one just yet. But what I did want to come on and talk about today, which is a solo live, obviously, with no official guests, I wanted to talk about a poll I ran last week. And I'm going to have to pop on the glasses here. The poll was asking the question, should employee benefits, and I should have been a little bit more specific and said, should medical insurance or healthcare be tied to employment? And it was surprising. The results as of today, I had 47 that said, yes, they should be tied to employment. I had 54 that said, no, they should not be tied to employment, and 3 others. I was actually surprised at the number of no's, but here is what I actually found a tiny bit more interesting. Of those 47 yeses, 90% of those are brokers or vendors that solutions are only available to large group or self-funded groups. And 54% that said no, or 54 of the votes that said no, we think it should not be tied to employment. You're probably not going to be that surprised by this one. HR leaders, business owners, and only 10% of brokers said that. We had 3 others because they wanted to explain their position. We're not going to count them. But let's talk for a minute about why do you think that HR leaders and business owners believe that benefits, specifically medical, should not be tied to employment? My take on it is that they're already so burdened with all of the things that they have to do, particularly HR, that the idea or the thought of taking the medical portion off of that would be hugely beneficial to them. So let's just kind of think for a minute, what would really happen if we did that? How would people buy insurance? Well, we know that a lot of people currently buy through the state and federal exchanges. However, in Washington state, which is where I'm located, if you purchase through the state exchange, the individual plans are considerably different than what can be purchased on a group basis. They are all very narrow networks. They have fairly high maximum out of pockets unless you qualify for some significant tax credits. The formularies for prescriptions are very dialed down. So, okay, we've got that option. It's out there. We can do it through ICHRA's, terrible insurance word, which simply stands for Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Account. QSARA's, which it's a similar thing. I won't go into that whole acronym explanation. So we have the ability to do it now, but it's not that popular. And in my opinion, I believe the reason that it's not that popular is because they're both health reimbursement accounts. That means that the employee would need to spend the money first and then be reimbursed. So for a lot of people, they don't have 400, 500, 600, whatever that dollar amount is per month to spend and then wait for reimbursement. There are some third-party vehicles that can make that process a little easier and a little less burden upon the employee. So you don't need to come on and tell me, oh, we have a solution. I know there's solutions out there. We still have the issue of what's available to individuals versus what's available to employers. I work in a space with a lot of very innovative consultants that are doing some wonderful things in employer-based plans. And primarily what they're doing has to do with self-funded programs implementing DPC, which is direct primary care, as the first the first line of defense when it comes to your healthcare. A good relationship with a primary care doctor can change your healthcare trajectory. I can attest to that. I've gone through a number of primary care doctors in the last couple of years because I was looking for somebody that would spend time and listen to me, and I finally found one. So by doing that, I know I'm getting much better care, and it will potentially reduce the need for specialists and additional tests. So love, love, love the work that people are doing around this. There are great opportunities to implement reduced imaging costs, bundled contracts. These things are fantastic and I love them. What happens if you leave your employer? They are designed to be an employee retention tool, but at the same time, they're also designed to help put money back in the employer's pocket with the intention that they are going to use it to improve the business or reduce copays and the cost to members. That happens a good percentage of the time. But do you need to be an employee of a large employer to be able to have this available to you? I'm starting to think there must be a way to do something different. I don't think we have it yet, so I don't think the answer's out there yet, but I think that we work with a bunch of brilliant people in this industry, and I think if we put our heads together, along with, some of the vendors we work with and policymakers, we could come up with a way to do this. We could take the principles that we are putting into place in these innovative next generation benefit programs and make them available to individuals. I know we can do it. I just don't know how, but I know there's a lot of people out there that do. So I kind of wanted to use an example of cell phones. I'm old. It's a fact of life. I have been around since before cell phones were available. I mean, I remember the party line at my grandparents' house. But I was also a very early adopter of cell phones. I had one of the very first ones. So I've had cell phones for at least 30 years. The first ones were giant. They came in a big bag and they were very expensive to use. You were being charged $1 or so per minute. So you were very brief on your cell phones. Eventually, they got smaller and more portable. And then we came out with things like the Palm Pilot and the BlackBerry. I'm going to still say it. I still loved my BlackBerry. I was sad to see that go. That provided additional capabilities. We could now text to people. We could search the internet a little bit. With some of them, we started to be able to take pictures. And the cost for using those phones came down as they became available to more people. I mean, well, I have an Apple phone, but that's just a personal preference. Androids are great too. I mean, whatever phone you have. But this is a mini computer in my hand. It is more powerful than the first computer I personally had. Much more powerful. Less expensive too. So it's crazy how far we've come, but we didn't know it was possible 30 years ago. If somebody had suggested, oh, you're going to have a phone in your hand that's just as powerful as a computer, well, 10 times more powerful than the computer you have today, we probably would have said, that's a great thought, but not really believed that it was possible. So I challenge, yeah, thank you, Mr. Contorno, are more powerful than the space shuttle. And I will tell you, you're going to like me. It's on my note card. You probably can't see it. Under cell phones, man on the moon. We did not think that was possible either. Everything is impossible until it becomes possible. And I strongly believe that we have an opportunity to not just change this industry one employer at a time. I think we have an opportunity to make a seismic shift in how benefits are provided. If an employer, and when I say benefits, please, I am referring to medical benefits. Dental, life, disability, it's going to always make more sense to purchase that through an employer or to have that as an employer provided benefit. Just, we won't go into the details on that. But with regards to medical, if employers were allowed to say, okay, I'm going to give each employee a $500 allowance, and there's great places for them to buy coverage. Have we tried it in the past and has it failed? Yes, we have. Kind of, sort of. In my state, the individual market, it's been 20 years or so ago now, we had an insurance commissioner that said everybody should qualify for insurance. There should be no pre-existing condition waiting periods, but there was no thought put into that. And so we went from having one set of rules to an entirely different set of rules overnight. And it financially bankrupted the insurance companies that were providing individual coverage at that time. You could not purchase an individual policy for just under 2 years in Washington State. It was a very dark time, let me tell you, unless you had that opportunity to buy through your employer. So some of the arguments I got that was that it's been tried. People will make bad decisions. People are always going to make bad decisions. I have employers that provide great benefits to their employees, and sometimes they still don't want it. Okay, so we have to accept that that's going to be part of the fact. But if we start making it available and we start making it in a way that's accessible and provides better outcomes for people, I think they're going to get on board. So my challenge to this industry is, let's start talking about this. Let's not just cling to our old ways. There's a term that's used quite a bit of status quo broker. And I was kind of surprised to see how many not status quo brokers said, oh, no, the only way we can do this is through an employer. I think part of the reason that it drives that is because change is always hard and a different approach is always hard. And instead of dealing with potentially 1 to 10 decision makers, we might be dealing with thousands of decision makers. So we need to start wrapping our heads around this discussion and start talking about it more. Nothing's going to change overnight, but nothing changes unless you ask the question. So for all one of you that joined me today, I very much appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing many of you next month in Miami. I think this conversation needs to continue, and I'd love to hear any additional thoughts you have. This is not the last of it you're going to hear from me. Make it a great day, and next week I will see you with episode 1 of season 3.